want to know if Fredericksburg no. I'm guessing. That's right. Elizabeth, please. Okay. Okay, it's 5:32 and we have a quorum, so we will be calling the meeting to order. And the first thing on the agenda is roll call. David Bullion, Jessica Middle, it's me, Larry Jackson, here. Sharon Joseph, here. Robin Kauser, here. Richard Laughlin, here. Sam Childers, here. Joey Salinas, here. And Amy Slaughter, here. Thank you. I would like to welcome you to the September 12th meeting of the Historic Review Board. The Historic Review Board is an advisory board appointed by the City Council. I am Jessica Middle, Vice Chair of the Historic Review Board. It is the function of the board to consider all applicants for certificates of appropriateness for properties in the historic district and for landmarks. In considering whether to approve or disapprove of an application for a certificate of appropriateness, the Historic Review Board shall be guided by the City of Fredericksburg design guidelines and standards and the Historic Preservation Ordinance. If anyone present wishes to speak in favor of or in opposition of any item on today's agenda, they should sign up on the persons to be heard sheet. It is not necessary to sign up if you are the owner of or representative for a project on the agenda. You will be called on as the case is called. Approval by the board does not take the place of any type of permit. Permits must be obtained for all work. No work of any type is to be started without obtaining the appropriate city permits after a certificate of appropriateness has been issued by the Historic Preservation Officer. And then, do we have anyone that signed up here for public comment? Okay. No, ma'am. Nope. Okay, perfect. So we item number 4, the approval of the August meeting minutes. Does anyone have any corrections? If there are no corrections, can the minutes stand as presented? Let's see. And then item number 5, certificate of appropriateness applications. The first applicant And I'm sorry, we do not have any consent agenda items, so we're moving on to individual consideration. Application 23-173 at 206 North Orange. And I believe Mr. Klein is here to represent that property. Anna, or Shelby, do you want to tell us a little bit about it before Mr. Klein comes up?
We'll let the applicant do the presentation first, and then we'll make the recommendation after.
Perfect.
Last time I spoke, you said you need to describe her. That's why I'm not up here.
Welcome. Thank you.
Okay. You want me to go through the project?
Yes, please.
Okay. You can enlarge one of these pictures to full screen. I'll have to look at my drawings. Okay, this is a photograph of the way it looks today. This property is an R2 property located at Mistletoe. Excuse me. It's at Schubert and Orange Street. It has been sitting there a long time, as we can all remember. When I was on the board, it was under the list of demolition by neglect. For those of you that remember that, the roof was open. I'm sorry? Yeah. So through the process of demolition by neglect, Historic Review Board and the caretaker, because the owner was in the nursing home. So they put this roof on and pretty much left everything on the inside alone. It's a lot of deterioration and a lot of mold and so forth. But the objective, the owners that bought the place is a couple out of South Texas from Harlingen, and they wanted it to be their weekend home. And so you all had approved it on the second month, I think in 2022. Is that correct, Anna? And at that time, we had a floor plan. The site is very limited. It's a corner lot. And we did design an addition that would accommodate 2 children's bedrooms and a parent's bedroom. Here, about 3 months ago, they were alarmed where they were living and they needed to move away from South Texas and Harlingen. And so they decided to move here and turn the house into a larger house so they would live in it full time. They have 4 children, and they will live here. So the objective was we can't go any further out. So they asked if they could at least see what a second story addition would look like. I've done 1.5 story additions before, which is to make it look like it's a 1-story building. And I did that to my own home. And so at the back is what the view you see right there. They raised it so they could put 2 bedrooms upstairs along with the egress windows. No one will really see this elevation because it's up against a wall. Their parents, her mother and father own the house right next to it, and that's one of the reasons why they picked this property. So explaining to you a little bit of background. So because of them moving up here, they've enrolled the children here. Our objective was to see if we can at least expand the house enough to accommodate 4 bedrooms. So there are 2 bedrooms upstairs with a sharing bathroom. And so basically what we're doing is, if you go back to the original plan of 2022, you'll see that the addition is pretty much the same. You can look at the footprint. You don't have that in your packet. But the only change is to this east side where we had to make room so they would actually have a kitchen. So created a pantry. And then he would be able to work in his home as well. But the rest of the house pretty much has changed. I mean, not changed. We did have to extend the deck and back. No, we didn't extend the deck. We created a second floor that would extend over the what was a deck, now a porch. We still have a single car garage, and all of the interior functions are pretty much have not changed. So primarily at this point, you can go to the second floor. You can see that it should be on the same drawing. You slide down. Maybe it's on the next page. Keep rolling down. I think it's okay. There you can see what we're doing at the second floor. But again, the footprint for the most part is the same. What we did on the exterior, you want to go to the next slide. We offset the side porch, side addition to allow for the separation. Scroll down to the next view, and on the side, the original house is to the left. And what used to be stone, we went to stucco because the second floor had stucco. And so we wouldn't have to put stone on it, because previously you approved the plan would show the addition was stone. What we did do is on the garage side, we retained the stone. And you go to the next drawing. You'll see this is the east side, and the new structure has stone on it for the rear. The bottom right and the left side of the rear, which you won't see, is stone, and there's your porch and deck. The second floor is stucco. Okay, let's go on to the next. All right, so you can see it's the same approach. We're going to restore the original house, the porches, the roof, and install a metal roof. Go to the next slide. And you can see the side view. And the only thing that's really different is the material and the second 1.5 story on the side. The window you see there is where the stairway comes up. That's it. All right, I'm ready for cross-examining on this.
Okay, Shelby, right. Are you presenting or Anna?
I will. Thank you, Stan. So yes, as you said, this is a project you've seen before, not too much of a change, just adding second floor within the height restrictions. Staff's recommendations the first time really are similar. It is a medium rated house. Obviously, when they take off the asbestos, that'll be a great restoration of the main house. So looking at some of the design guidelines for height and massing, and the additions. It is a constrained lot. It's a small lot. You can see it's going back to the setback, so it's maxed out as far as placement of the addition. Not a lot of space. So using the majority of the lot. On the original recommendation, recommended a hyphen on the rear. As proposed, it's taking out the entire back wall of the house. On the original recommendation, it also recommended taking off that porch on the new addition on the east side. Is that south side, I guess? Just to lessen the blocking of the view of the main house. Again, it is a small main structure, and it is a fairly significant addition. So just trying to minimize that wherever possible and retain as much of the view of the original house and as much of the original material of the original house as possible. Stan, I was just looking at, is there space for 2 parking spots?
No, but they're a corner lot, and they could have another curb cut in the front.
Okay.
But it's really designed for one.
Okay.
I mean, they would have to put one in the garage, and you have one parked outside. I don't think that's
just noticing that we were.
And it's probably wide enough where you could really negotiate 2 vehicles.
Okay.
But the curb that you see there, the curb cut is the one that's present.
So again, comparing it to the original or the previously approved, I think you went through the change. There's not many changes since that approval, which you guys granted. So staff just cited the standards and guidelines for your consideration for additions and setback. But the design itself is fairly compatible. You are using two more materials, meaning a third material. The recommendations really prefer two with just an accent third material. So it's in your hands. Previously approved, but with some conflicting recommendations from the design guidelines.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions or comments for Mr. Klein?
I have a question, Stan. The porch appears to have integral gutters, does it? Am I correct? On the front porch?
Ooh. I think it's not intended to be integral. They're applied to the fascia. The historic porch, is that what you're referring
Yes,
to? Or
I'm referring to the historic porch
it's been a while.
down there.
If it is incorporated, we will include it
Okay.
in the new construction. I think they are. I think you're right.
Okay.
And they dealt with it apparently, and I've experienced that through the years, and I don't like the solution to get eliminated, and I'd like to retain it.
And it's going to be a metal roof that's on the porch like it is now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
And this guy in the yellow shirt says that TCS metal is available, and that's where it really solves a lot of our metal problems at low slopes. It's my objective. It's good eye, Sharon Gale, because it definitely is.
There are fewer and fewer of them all the time, so I'd like to.
The solutions I've seen are not really palatable,
No.
in my opinion.
I'm glad you're trying to preserve it.
Any other comments?
Stan, what are your thoughts on staff's recommendation to not have the west porch on your addition?
What you're asking me?
Yeah.
I asked the owner before the meeting, and she pretty much wants a porch so they can come out to the front yard from that side of the house. If you look at the plan, we don't really have many exits, and that becomes really a third exit. You've got the large windows going to the back. We have to change the roof material. That's fine. I don't know for sure if there was an original wood shingle on this house. There's a lot of microbial problems in that house. So I'm not spending a whole lot of time digging like I normally do, but I will. We've had microbial investigations done, so.
Do we have proposed colors in this application?
Is that a question? Would you repeat it?
Do you have colors that you've included?
Yeah, they're
in
on
this?
the application. I think Richard asked me the last time. However, if there's an occasion for a color change, obviously it would come to you. but it would be something that would be complementary.
Yes, does anyone want to attempt a motion or dissect it into different motions?
I was just gonna move that we approve the application as presented. Did you want to divide it?
If everyone's happy with it, let's go for it.
Okay, that's my motion.
Okay, do we have a second to Sharon Joseph's motion to approve the application as it? I second them. Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say sign.
Aye.
Okay, motion is approved. Application 23-173 is approved. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Your voice sounded different at first. I didn't see that you were the vice chair.
So y'all take care of the parking
Good job.
before they get a permit.
I'm sorry.
I was
was
just
asking-
verifying they were going to take care of the parking before you got a permit.
Take care of the parking.
2 parking spaces. It's not our problem, but
No, I don't mind it.
Yeah.
28. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so next we have application 23-175 at 520 East Main Street. Is there an applicant or representative to come present the project? And Richard Laughlin will be recusing. Welcome, good evening.
Good evening, I'm Gary Hunter, and I shouldn't be nervous. I've talked about this enough times, but I'm still nervous. What we would like to do is to build a small museum behind the existing church. The museum will be a replica of the original colored schoolhouse where my mother attended school, and even before her. Actually, the schoolhouse pre-existed the church that's already there. If on the historical marker, it speaks about the schoolhouse, which was built in the 1870s. That schoolhouse still exists on Schubert Street, but it has been altered considerably from its original form. It has a porch on it. It has a tin roof. This is the way the school looked originally when my mother went there. It has no, as you can see, it has no porch. It has a chimney in the back. What we want to do, I have actually tried to work to have the original schoolhouse moved to the property where we're at. The owner, current owner, doesn't want to get rid of it. And I found out through a couple of the foundations that they wouldn't even consider assisting us because it has been, the schoolhouse as it currently exists has been changed so much from its original condition that it doesn't meet the criteria for foundation assistance. So the back half of our yard has purposely, at the church, has been purposely not landscaped because we had anticipated over the time that we'd like to get the schoolhouse. It was actually a visit to Fredericksburg that gave us the idea to build a replica of the original school. And in doing that, we would match the shiplap to the outside. I'd probably have to, I don't know, if I can find another old building like I did with the restrooms, we'll tear it down and use some original shiplap. If not, I will have it profiled so that the outside will resemble the shiplap that's on the church and on the restrooms, since that seems to be the right period. We will also, the original schoolhouse as it currently exists doesn't have a chimney. I have got the Hannah's bricks fired in the 1800s that we will use to put the chimney on. And as with the church, which originally had a tin roof that was not historical, we'll be replacing the tin roof. Instead of a tin roof, we'll be using Endura Shake for the Cedar Shake shingles. There we go. Boy, that's okay. So that's really what we have in mind. And with that, once we get it built, we'll be able to landscape the back of the property and make the whole thing as good looking as the front. I should say the building itself is about 300 square feet approximately on the ground. So it's not real big.
Wonderful. Okay, Anna?
Thank you, Mr. Hunter. So this is an interesting project, as he said, a reconstruction of a building that exists, but in a different form. We don't know the exact location, so it's not as if we have foundations and we're putting it back on an original foundation. I've shared with Mr. Hunter the Secretary of the Interior standards for reconstruction, which can be a little tricky, right? So we do have an extant building that I think we understand the modifications that have been made and understand what's not original. So we have some good evidence of what was there. We have some photographs, and Mr. Laughlin's done some drawings based on the photographs and the original structure as it sits today. So I feel like we have some pretty good stuff to work with, but they're tricky. Right? Reconstructions are always tricky. I think the site placement will be important, and then the materials will be important. Things like foundation. Will it be a poured foundation? Will it be pier and beam foundation? So I think the devil's in the details on these, on this type of reconstruction, and I think the Ryan's Cherokee is a good example, right? An important structure that can tell an important piece of our Fredericksburg history. So definitely a worthy cause that we want to offer our support for, but getting those details right. So overall, staff recommends approval of the project, but I think going through is Endura Shake the right material for the roof, and then just the foundation, if that should be poured or pier and beam. And we've talked about as much reclaimed material as you can find, just to get it hopefully period appropriate. Maybe not well, as easy as it is to find material or not. And then also for the windows and the door. The design considerations for the stoop, again, features that existed on the original building but are modifications. And I think we would go based on the drawings that appear to be, I won't say original, but from the time period where your mother's standing in front of the structure. So I think that's the time period we're trying to go back to, which, did we say was 1930s or 40s?
From the looks of the photograph, I'm going to say the 30s.
The 30s, okay. So at that point, it was already a 60-year-old building.
Right.
Yeah, that would have gone undergone some alterations. So, I'll leave it for discussion. But we're supportive of it and want to see it come to fruition. He did receive hot funding for the reconstruction, so City Council made those allocations available.
I have a question just for clarification on the application. The survey rating is medium, but the church is rated high, isn't it?
I'm sorry, the C of A application has a default to medium, if that's what you're looking at.
The church is rated medium.
It's a landmark. It's high.
Okay.
But on the we've got to change our C of A application. The default is medium.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I understand. That's clear. That's clear. Thank you.
Does anyone else have any comments or questions?
I have a question. I don't know, without knowing what kind of foundation is going to be used for roofing. Is that something that can just go through your office, or does that need to come back here after that decision is made?
I think you need to talk about it and give the feedback, the recommendation on what you want to see. If you're okay with the poured concrete foundation, but it is, if it's the height that you're more worried about or the elevation, I think you can express those preferences.
But there's nothing there that shows that it had been a poured anything before. There's no.
Right.
Where it
We
was
don't, we're
before.
not saying that this is the location. We're not saying this is the location of the original school. It's just being proposed behind the existing church.
But did you
Black
say
church.
there's an existing there's parts of a foundation behind the church?
No,
There's not.
Oh, I misunderstood. So we don't know what the foundation was of the original school. We know it for concrete, but
Right. A pier and beam of some sort.
Yeah.
Cedar post, most likely, or cypress. But
I would say that's correct. Underneath the church, there's cedar posts. It's a pier and beam, and the school was built 10 years before the church. So,
and then it's filled in with it's cedar posts, and then it's filled in with rock, right?
right.
On the church.
This is my first time on the board to have something completely reconstructed. So as a public building, would he need to come back for approval of certain items that are needed for being a public building, like the steps or handrails or things like that? Or is that something we're just approving the concept of it?
well, and that adds a layer, right? Current code versus historic accuracy.
I think
Tricky at best. I don't think how many steps we're talking.
I believe with Laughlin Homes doing this project, it will be about close to 100% correct.
I agree.
All right, Richard Laughlin. The plans are for the foundation is to pour, and the reason being to meet modern code, we'd have to have 18 inches of clearance between the ground and any joist, which would put us 30 inches out of the ground. You can see from the historic photos that wasn't the case on this building. So the way we propose to do that is to pour the foundation, and as we're pouring it, we'll put the pressed brick tin, which is currently on the building, and it shows in the pictures, against the forms and cast that in so that we show that metal facade on the foundation, and then we'll screed it and put wood floor on the top of it. That way we'll have a better chance of making ADA accessibility without creating moisture problems and mold problems for the building because we're too close to the ground. So you'll probably notice too that on the current building there's two windows facing south and there's two facing east and there's two facing west. But if you look at the picture with Gary's mother in it, there's none on the side that she's standing on, which would have been the left side. The building is rotated now. So if you go over to the building at the old court property there's actually ghost marks on the west side now where there was 4 windows. So probably when they moved it to town or at some point, they decided to create symmetry and they took 2 from the west and put them on the east. So that's why there's that major change in the architecture.
Thank you very much.
So that goes back to Jessica's question of this is not a historic structure, but it's representing history. And and so does it have to be ADA compliant, and does it have to have all of those things that would require it being a pour instead of pier and beam? I think there's someone in the audience who can address that.
Public accommodation. Private only. Inviting people. Public accommodation. Just that you know, but the point is that you want to accessibility. I don't know, I haven't looked through it, any exemptions. I know some we have where they were exempted because of the point that education, reconstruction, there, release and all for building and moving. I don't know if there's any documentation on it, but the Sanborn maps doesn't cover that area. And so from the photographs you show me where it's at, you don't have any payment documentation. The point is that if you spend $50,000 for a building public accommodation, where it's at the door, so the door has to be 36 inches wide, or accessible. You can do that with preschool. No. This.
Can I say that we had a similar situation with the church when we restored the church? The property in front of the church dropped off so severely that we had to construct sidewalks in a special design and bring them up to be ADA accessible. But the point is, we did it through the landscaping and by our contractors. The back is no different. The back has not been landscaped. So making it ADA accessible has always been part of the consideration. Once the building is constructed, we can landscape it in such a way that we put in walkways, raise the level of the dirt in the back. All of that's something we had planned to do anyway.
And the door width and everything.
The door that's on there is a 5-panel door, and I have a 5-panel door, and it is 36 inches wide. So I really don't know what ADA requires as far as a door. The church had double doors in front, so that was a no-brainer. But this one is a 5-panel door. We do this kind of thing for a living in San Antonio. The door is 36 inches wide, so that's ADA compliant, and we're good on the door.
So does that meet it? It does, doesn't it? Okay. I love the idea. I think it's really, really neat.
Yeah, this is a really neat project. Anyone ready to make a motion or have any more questions?
I'd still have one more question. Do we need to decide or say what it's going to be foundation-wise tonight if we're going to pass this tonight? Am I correct?
Are we overthinking this? This is new construction. It's not restoration. It's new construction, so it has to follow all the building codes of a new building. Are we adding too much historic thinking to it? I mean, am I making sense?
Well, I mean, it's a balancing act. I mean, we want it to be as historically accurate as possible, while meeting the building code that it absolutely must. It is a small structure, but I mean, a modern building has to meet a blow test, and there's lots of things that modern buildings are done that just are not compatible with a reconstruction of a very simple, plain, probably not insulated building. So I don't know if because once you go down, okay, this is a fully modern building. I mean, it's not a historic building, So I think what they're trying to do is make it as historically accurate as possible. with reclaimed material. So usually, right, we don't talk much about foundations here, right? Because foundations are redone all the time, and we're more concerned with the skirting and the appearance, and not the actual foundation. But it can come into play when we're talking about the height, how tall, how far off the building it's going to be. So, yeah, it's a balancing act.
So the answer is we don't have to make that decision tonight.
Right. If you want to give them guidance or a preference or direction, again, if it's just the exterior, what it looks like that you're concerned about, then I think you can approve with an option that meets the appearance that you're looking for.
Just have one more question.
Sure.
On the roofing, did you say that on the original it was a tin roof?
The roof that is on the original building, the one that exists now, is a tin roof.
Oh, okay.
Okay, but I believe that there is evidence that it was originally cedar shake. That was also the case with the church when we redid the church. In fact, I came in wanting to replace the roof, the tin roof, and I was told, no, we're going to have to go back with the original. And so this board actually helped us find a contractor that could install the original type shingles. And that's what we intend to do here. I mean, it's...
Yes, you had said that, and I just was unclear when you said the original building. I was thinking the one where your mom is in the picture.
Oh, no.
But you're saying that there's evidence that the original roof was the shingle.
Cedar shake.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I move that we accept application 23-175 as filed.
Second.
All of those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Application.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
Thank
We're
you.
excited to see it. That was application number 23-175. And then on to discussion items. The discussion item number A is 107 West San Antonio, demo by neglect.
Thank you, Jessica. At the previous Historic Review Board meeting, the board had requested that staff add this item to the agenda for discussion. Staff took some photos of the property at 107. For your consideration.
For the record, Richard Laughlin is recusing himself from this conversation. We're looking at the condition of
We're trying to decide whether to send a demolition by neglect letter.
and whether so to just from first glance, to me, I would be concerned with losing these details on the ornate detailed trim on the front.
We call that gingerbread. Is that correct? The correct term? So it's so unique, and we're, and original, that I'd really hate to lose it. And it looks like some of it is rotting. Plus, I guess this also has the integral gutters. And are you working on this house, Richard? Is that why you have to recuse yourself? He's for you. Okay. So we just have to decide how serious we are about this. If he's received a demolition by neglect letter month before, probably 5 or 10 years ago, and he just came in and painted everything and didn't replace anything. But you wouldn't want him to have to replace anything because you don't want it to rot so that it has to be replaced. And I can't tell if we're at that point there or not.
That right-hand corner is sagging to me from the photos.
Yep.
So that one specifically concerns me. But the rest,
This is a residence, right? Not commercial.
It's B&B, isn't it?
I don't think it's a short-term rental. I think it's a residence. It's not a commercial building. It doesn't, it's not a retail or anything like that. No, sir.
I believe he lives there. I believe somebody lives there.
So I have a question. If a letter was sent out 5 to 10 years ago, is that right? And they painted it, what was the condition 5 to 10 years ago that a letter was sent out?
It was, I would say it was visibly worse than this because the paint was peeling off so badly.
Uh,
So, but I'm just concerned about the the corner over there that's getting rotten.
Upstairs and down.
Yeah.
So, so painting it met the requirements of the demolition by neglect. There was not a second step to that at the time? Oh, you were here.
Was that even in your tenure?
Yeah,
it might have been before.
Okay.
I don't remember how many years it was. A long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
Could he apply for the historic preservation grant?
Yes.
I think we should send them a letter.
I concur. I feel like there's deferred maintenance that is jeopardizing the historical value of this home. And I think we should address that.
What is the rating on this? High? Or medium? Or
I believe it's high.
You know when it was built? And to follow up with that, you call this a Victorian?
Yes, I do.
While Shelby's looking, I have another question. In a letter that's sent, is it specified what needs to be done? So from these pictures, we can't see the sides of the building or the back. So how do they address that? Somebody goes and checks it out, does a site visit, or what?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
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 Somebody from this group or from the city?
The city.
Okay, and then you all will specify. We just decide if there needs to be a letter. Okay.
Yes, ma'am. And it is a high-rated property. Looks like it was built in 1905.
So who said we should send a letter? We need a motion.
Very.
Do you want to make a motion, or did you already?
I guess I can.
So you can provide direction to staff. At this point, it's not
So-
noticed for an action item. So
Okay.
this is just discussion.
Okay, great. So I think Mr. Jackson and several others have expressed the need to write the letter.
Yes, ma'am. Staff
And-
will add that.
Is there anything on there that anyone would like to add besides the gingerbread pieces? Would staff mind taking a closer look at the top, and if it appears to be mold or decay, rot, take that up? Great.
I think the second floor porch is leaning both directions.
Both directions.
I think it's, well, that. Not quite that. That would cause those cracks, I believe, above the gingerbread.
Okay, next discussion item is B is 1149 North US Highway 87 the gas station. Staff has provided photos. Page 32 and 33. And Richard Laughlin is back. Joined us.
What's the question?
So at the last meeting, this was, someone asked that we put this on the agenda for discussion for potential landmark designation. So this is the old gas station at the Y. You'll remember the previous hotel conference center did not contemplate keeping it. They were planning to demolish it. At that time, staff did a little bit of research, so I've got a very small file on it. But if it's something you're interested in landmarking, we can do further research and see if it warrants protection and designation.
I would like to see more information on it. I don't know any of the history on it, and I'd like to see more of the documentation of it.
And we had, you may recall, TxDOT created a whole guidebook on gas stations. They were very common in Fredericksburg, on every corner, multiple on every corner. And of course, as Main Street has changed, we've lost some of those. And so you have designated and re-rated a few gas stations, and then others have failed to meet that threshold for designation. So we can give you a thorough history on it and bring it to you for consideration.
I would encourage staff to look into this. This is kind of like one of the last icons on West Main.
What happens if it sells, then it will be get it taken care of.
So landmark designation now, the state changed the rules a few years ago. We have to notify the owner and either get their consent, or city council can designate it over their objection. It requires a supermajority. And we do have to notify them of certain things, right? What does landmark designation mean? So staff will have to provide all that information to them during that process, and they can essentially, if they say, sure, that's great, go for designation today, on the day of the city council meeting, they can say, never mind, we pull our our consent. So consent can be withdrawn at any time. But that's part of the reason to landmark it, right? No matter whose hands it winds up in, that we're saying that it's important. I will say the most recent design that we saw from the current owners of the property included using it in their design. So, but if you were to landmark it, we would also want to be kind of judicious in the land that goes around it with it. This has changed hands a few times and they've replatted. So we wanted to, we'll do that, but look at the area around it. You will recall there was a house to the left of it. That house has been relocated. So the family that ran the gas station and lived on site, the house is gone. So a little bit of context is gone, but I would, anyway, we can talk more about the landmark status, but that's part of the process, is working with the owner. But it can be done over owner objection. But as of today, the current owners and their design incorporates the building into their project.
So is it for sale right now?
No.
Okay, so these pictures that
Oh.
say for sale.
Yeah, those are from the file.
Okay.
Is this something y'all can have by next month?
Let me see how much I've got pulled together. I mean, I know I did quite a bit of research, so let me check the file to see how much. Okay.
Because if we've started the process of researching it or looking into it, then that would keep anybody from being able to do anything until the decision was made, because the process starts tonight or not.
Not exactly. I mean, if somebody came in for a demo permit tomorrow, I would pull the permit, and we have a demolition delay on any demo in the city. So, and there's a provision that any demolition can trigger landmark review. So in that case, we're covered.
Okay.
Yeah, but I don't feel like it's an imminent threat.
Good.
Jerry did quite a bit of research on it, so you may want to reach out to him.
Okay. Okay, and then the update on the status of the post replacements for 100 block of East Main.
So you may recall a few years ago, before COVID, it was the week before spring break, there was a car accident on Main Street that took out several posts. And some contractors came in and put in some temporary posts to stabilize the canopies. To my knowledge, none of those posts have been accurately replaced. Most of them are still just kind of what was meant to be temporary. And I don't know exactly why. I mean, I'd sent a follow-up I don't know, probably now been a year or two, and I haven't heard from any of the property owners that they plan to do anything different. I know Mr. Pinnock ordered his were the most important, I think, of all of them. They were probably the only original ones. Can you zoom in there? So I know he ordered replica columns, but they just have not been installed. Of course, doing anything in TxDOT right away on busy Highway 290 is challenging. I don't know, Richard, if you have any more information, but
So have some of the posts have been replaced and just these two?
Doesn't sound like
no, I think
Those are the only two that were affected.
Those two are just temporary wooden posts with a cast iron.
But were there others that were damaged that were replaced?
yes.
Other buildings farther down, yes, have been replaced.
But they weren't, these are cast iron posts, aren't they? So it was my understanding that the Pinnocks were having those cast iron posts cast.
Yes, my understanding is they
someone
have
know
been
something
cast and they
different?
have them. They just have not had them installed.
But they have them but haven't installed them?
I believe so. Can anybody do the work?
So what are our choices here? What are we trying to decide?
Somebody asked for an update, so this is your
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You asked, can anybody do the work?
That's what I've been, everybody has the same, I can't get anybody to do the work
Oh,
response, especially for small projects and TxDOT right away.
Okay, and the director's report.
Director's report, we still have the HPO position open. Received one applicant, but no offers have been made yet, so still an open position. And short-term rental ordinance, P&Z heard that on last Thursday. That'll go to City Council on October 3rd for adoption. Right now, there's no change to the historic district. Right now, any R2 zone property in the historic district requires a conditional use permit. That would switch to a special exception, so you guys aren't really involved unless it requires, design review. but the historic overlay is used in some of the evaluations. We do have a map Shelby's going to pull up, so if you're interested as to how many STRs we have and where they're located, we have a map that shows, that does an overlay over the zoning map. This is accurate as of August 1st. And the comprehensive plan, we are expecting the first draft hopefully in early October. So starting to come together, and the parks master plan as well should have a first draft out fairly soon.
So back to the short-term rental ordinance, one of the proposed changes is parking, which would definitely affect the district and how many spaces are on the lot. So I don't know if I would recuse myself from the conversation, but I don't know if that would give any weight for the historic review board to speak on behalf of parking lots in front of historic homes.
So, the historic district, the historic shopping district, does have different parking requirements for historic properties, right? You don't have to park dualies because it's a historic property, and to properly park dualies when it turned to Allen's Boots, you would have to demolish the building next to it to provide parking, right? So we've had that parking allowance for the historic shopping district for a while, but it is not. Short-term rentals are not exempt. If you provide an STR, then you have to park an STR. In residential areas, right, you have to park 2 spots. Any residence has to have 2 spots. So we're trying to make the STRs a little bit more consistent across the board. But there are definitely, if there are any places where STRs are currently underparked, it would be the historic district. One provision in the STR ordinance was going to disallow tandem parking of greater than 2. Current recommendation from P&Z would allow that tandem parking, which of course is very common in the historic districts, in the 200 lot, deep lots. So staff would definitely not recommend anything that's going to require front yard parking, and that still would be reviewed, right? You can't pave a front yard, especially in the residential area. There's already a provision that speaks against that. So it's a balancing act, like most things. Of the biggest complaint we hear, one of the biggest complaints we hear from neighbors is all the parking, taking up all the parking. But do we want to create STRs to be parking lots? A house surrounded by parking. Street parking is available for everybody. There's no designated parking. Even if you live at a house, you're not obligated to have the parking in front of your house. Same for a Main Street property. So it's a balancing act. We don't write tickets for parking. Anybody can park on the street, whether you're STR, visitor, or owner, doesn't matter. So trying to accommodate STRs and their parking without having a negative impact on the neighborhood. So I don't know where the HRB would fall in on that, because we don't do landscaping or really get into curb cuts per se. But as staff, I would not ever recommend that we start paving parking, front yard for parking.
And that's all we have. Does anyone have anything else for next meeting? Okay, can I get a motion to adjourn? Okay, motion adjourned. Or meeting adjourned. Thank you.